Jesus E. Solorio Jr., running for Congress in the 4th District of Illinois. Welcome to Laugh and Learn with Vern. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
We go back, way back, all the way to probably 2019. Chicago Young Republicans group is
Yeah.
still kicking around. You clearly have been doing some big things since then. You are this motivated guy. You have your own business. What are you doing getting into politics?
It's something that I never thought I would actually put my name on the ballot. I've always worked to get good candidates elected, but it never crossed my mind that I would actually run. So I saw that this opportunity kind of opened up and realized that here in Chicago, we need to give voters a real opportunity and real options as to who they get to vote for. It's heavy blue area, and Republicans, I don't know for what reason, maybe they're afraid, maybe they don't know how to interact with voters. So I decided to put my name on the ballot and run because I'm tired of seeing all the corruption. I'm tired of seeing all the bureaucracy and the red tape just really affecting our communities.
You talked about bureaucracy and red tape. We talked before we went on recording about a situation you had to deal with, some red tape that didn't go your way. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in 2013 and 2014, I was part of a grassroots team that kind of came together and wanted to open up a STEM, a science, technology, engineering, mathematics school, high school in Little Village, which is a predominantly Hispanic community here in Chicago. We went through the entire process. We looked at curriculum, we looked at fundraising because we knew that we wanted to be self-sufficient and make sure that we were bringing in resources outside of federal funding, state funding. We went through the entire process, but unfortunately, because of the bureaucracy and the red tape, we weren't able to open up the high school at, once we presented the proposal. So that got me fired up, and I said, this is an excellent program. Like, we are exposing kids to these fields where the jobs are going to increase significantly over the next couple of years. Like, people should be jumping at the opportunity, but because we didn't have the connections, we were just rejected.
Can you give an example of what you mean by like the connections? Like what was like what was an example of something red tape like maybe I wouldn't know about that they like asked you or asked you to do and you're just like how's that even work?
Just to put it simple, the unions are adamantly against school choice, allowing parents to decide where the funds and where kids get to go to school. And I think that's a overall a bigger problem right now because kids are basically told what they can study, where they can study, and the parents are unfortunately, lack of a better word, their kids are just being held hostage by these unions. That if their demands aren't met, they're not going to open up schools, and so that's predominantly what the problem was. Is that unions are against allowing kids to have other options.
When you're trapped in your home and you can't leave, I think hostage actually is I think that actually is normally a hostage situation.
Yeah.
You have very detailed policy proposals. I highly recommend everyone check out Jesus's Twitter, which I will shout that out right now since I was just looking at it. That is Jesus Solorio Jr., just at, right? JesusSoloriojr. You did an article with the Sun Times, which I think some of their heads probably exploded with your answers. I can't imagine they expected the amount of detail and the way you broke things down. I mean, that was a 5 or 10 minute article. It's a great read. I want to first talk about your economic proposals. I don't even know what you're running against Chuy Garcia. I have no idea what he's even running against, and quite frankly, I'm sure it's terrible. What are your ideas?
Just to put it simple, the reason that we are seeing such a disparity when it comes to income, when it comes to education, when it comes to healthcare, it's not because of the rich against the poor or black, white, and brown. It's because we have a system that I like to call cheat street, which includes, all those special interests, all the lobbyists that embolden these elected officials to basically pass harmful legislation. And so I want to fix that system, right? It's, when we're able to address this cheat street and when we're able to get them out of the way, then we can get back to, regular economics. Because right now we just have any field, healthcare, education, the environment is a big one. You have artificial regulations that inflate the demand on one side, right? And it just benefits a certain group. And again, it goes back to the people that are connected. And so when I decided to run, I wanted to make sure that I was telling a real story, that it's not institutional racism, which that's what my opponent likes to say, that we're not succeeding. We can't attract better jobs into our district because of institutional racism. And I'm telling that narrative that that's not the case. We need to move beyond that, because the real reason it's Cheat Street that has just taken a hold of our government system.
Let's talk about how that relates to the environment. Can you give an example of one of these distortions?
Yeah, I mean, look at during the Obama administration, they were pushing hard for renewable energy. Solorio is one of the companies that just was funded and then went bankrupt, right? So we have, especially in the far left, basically the people that are not controlling the Democrats, they are putting forth an alarmist agenda that the world's going to end in 12 years. That, that if we don't fix and we don't pass these legislations and this 70, 90 trillion dollar package to basically address and basically instructing people to rebuild their homes so they're equipped with solar panels and renewable energy and all these other restrictions or regulations, who's benefiting from this, right? The specific lobbyists in that area. So what we need to look at is that, yeah, climate is changing, right? But at the same time, it's not, the world's not going to end in 12 years. There's better ways to motivate individuals and companies and segments of our economy to develop better ways to produce energy. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is the leftists just want to radicalize everything, want to put us in 100% renewable energy, which is not doable, right? And
Unless
even
it's nuclear. Maybe.
yeah, maybe, but
Which,
they want to get rid of that as well. I
yeah,
mean, look at Joe Biden wants to get rid of fracking.
yeah. He wants to win Pennsylvania and get rid of fracking. Well, no. Did you hear what he said? He's like, well, I wouldn't like get rid of it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll just
He,
keep your, yeah.
he's flip-flopped on that depending on where he's at. If he's in Pennsylvania, he's all for fracking, but if he's in Delaware or somewhere else, he's against fracking. So these are the extreme policies that these people are putting forth. And who's pushing these policies? It's a special interest that will benefit by going 100% renewable. And we're never going to get to 100% renewable by dictating and by telling the economy what needs to be done.
There are many special interest groups across the economy that have this. I want to say, I don't know if oligopoly is the right way to put it, but for
Yeah.
example, the AMA,
Mm-hmm.
right, the American Medical Association, to become a doctor, they have this whole all the licensing. As a lawyer, I have my own kind of the American Bar Association with the licensing fees, and you have to go through 3 years of law school, which I've told people before it should be 2 and an apprenticeship, because the third year most people are literally doing maybe 3 to 6 credits, which is like 2 classes. They're kind of looking for jobs. They're mostly just going out. They're at the pool, things like that. And I, for what's worth, I did a JD MBA, so I had 18 credit hours all for my last semester, so I actually had to do some work, although I did watch 30 Rock a lot. Great show. What's an example of something you want, policy-wise, that you would want to do to make things more fair, whether it be the AMA, the American Bar Association, or just something that has such a tight-knit or just tight grasp on one specific area?
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the AMA, but we see that in occupational licensing. There's restrictions beyond restrictions, requirements, licensing fees, continuing education fees,
Oh, yeah.
and I mean to cut hair, to become a realtor. I mean, just across the field, it seems like every year there's new restrictions on new areas of the economy, and so the people that control the pipeline is these organizations, the AMA and so on and so forth, and that just creates an artificial bottleneck. So there has to be ways to come to a consensus and say that a doctor doesn't necessarily have to go to medical school for 6 8 years, or maybe create a separate entity that will streamline the process and just remove the power of the AMA. I mean, the AMA controls who becomes a doctor, what schools get certified, and allows the doctors to go to those schools. You know, that's again an artificial barrier to entry.
What is another economic issue that you're very passionate about that you see affecting your district?
Immigration is a big one, and it's something that my opponent has literally campaigned on during the 30 plus years that he's been in office, ever since he started as a local alderman. And what we're seeing is that our immigration system is broken. Yet he wants to remove and defund ICE. He wants to remove the border, and he wants to decriminalize illegal crossings. Doesn't realize that that's going to hurt our communities and directly impact our communities. So what we need to do is look at our visa system. That's another area that is artificially impacting our communities, right? So we have two areas. On the lower end, we have individuals that they get work visas that come here to do agriculture work, low skilled jobs, and that affects individuals in that area, because now they're competing. Not only are they competing with China with manufacturing, having to produce products at a lower rate, but they're also competing against these individuals that come here and are paid lower wages. And it's not fair for these individuals too, because now they're stuck and they get paid lower wages and they get mistreated. And then on the other end, the high-tech workers, you have visas specifically created in those fields to bring individuals that are in STEM and provide them with a lower wage, instead of allowing students that are here that are paying thousands and thousands of dollars the ability to apply to compete for those jobs. And again, these individuals are competing with the visa holders and are competing with the with China and India and all these other high-tech countries.
What's one way to fix the visa system?
I think one step is we need to look at all the visas. There's a plethora of visas, and start to cut back on those visas. Because again, this is just creating artificial, it's increasing the supply into our country. So we need to slowly start to cut back on those and allow the people that are here to compete for those jobs.
It seems like a pretty straightforward message, very America first. When you speak to people in your district about this, how is it received?
When I talk to people here in my district, they get it. They're like, well, that makes sense. And people, like I mentioned, people, a lot of low skill individuals understand this because they haven't seen a raise in a long time. And when you explain what are the main factors that are causing their income to stagnate, they understand that. But unfortunately, again, here in Chicago, we've been run by Democrats for 80 plus years, and any type of conversation that you try to have, you're labeled as xenophobic, a bigot, all the isms.
You're labeled as xenophobic?
Oh yeah.
By
Oh yeah.
who?
So let's say you, as a conservative minority.
I mean, I can see me being labeled all those things, but
no, you'd be surprised. It's magically, you lose all the protections of being a minority when you're a conservative. So somehow I've become a white nationalist, white supremacist, bigoted, all the.
hey, welcome to the club. It's apparently not mutually exclusive to white people anymore. So we're happy to have you. It's been very lonely, to be honest. I'm kidding.
No, and and that's another thing. I talk to a lot of parents. They are just frustrated because people in suburbia, no offense to them, they can hire tutors and nannies and support staff to help them with their kids, and they themselves can work from home. But it's the blue collar families that can't afford a nanny, they can't afford a tutor, can't afford to take time off to take care of to help their kids to their online education. And that's what these politicians don't understand.
Yeah, I always wonder about that because a lot of parents now, they might be working at home because of COVID, but when you're, let's say, your first, second, third grade child is supposed to be on the computer and they're having trouble with something, and then you go help them, you're not exactly working. So then you take away from your job. And if you have more than one child and they're all that age, are you talking to a lot of parents? Are they like, what is the vibe in your community that when you talk to people about, because right now I believe Chicago is 100% remote, correct? CPS.
That is correct.
Yeah, how are they dealing with that? How are they feeling?
They're very concerned. They're very concerned because again, a lot of the time, these parents can't take time off from their work, and these are essential workers. These are people that have to go to work in order to provide for their family. So they're finding it very difficult. I was talking to a family, and the mom had to basically cut back hours, and they're basically surviving off of one income, the husband's income, and they have I think 3 or 4 kids that all of them are going through remote learning.
That's crazy. Let's talk about healthcare.
Mhm.
What are your ideas for healthcare? Because I don't think anyone on either side is happy with what's going on right now.
Yeah, and that's another issue that's very important here in my district. And again, Republicans and Democrats, they're both at fault with not really trying to uh, figure the issue. Um, and you have the Democrats that are adamantly fighting for Medicare for all. And I think what we've seen with COVID should frighten everyone that Medicare for all is not the way to go. Um, we saw that we are overly reliant on China when it comes to medical supplies. So first, we need to bring back those um, that manufacturing back into our country, so that we know exactly and we know the time frame, and we can control the production of those supplies. Secondly, we have to protect individuals with pre-existing conditions. I mean, that's a given. It's no fault of their own, so we need to make sure that we are including them in the healthcare uh, overall package. And then, like I mentioned, doctors. Right now, there is a shortage of doctors. So imagine if we open up the floodgates with Medicare for all. We don't have enough doctors and nurses to take care of the influx of patients.
In terms of Medicare for all, I'm assuming your opponent probably supports it.
Yes, he's a big proponent of Medicare for all.
Have you or anyone else asked him how you can have Medicare for all with open borders?
Uh, Unfortunately, the media is not willing to ask the tough questions, and he's basically has not answered exactly how he would implement Medicare for all.
Why do you think that is? Like, for example, like the Sun Times. The Sun Times doesn't seem to ever go hard at anyone in the Democratic Party that I can tell. Why is that?
You know, I think that's the frustration that President Trump saw, and he realized that he needed to bypass all the uh, all the media, and because they weren't asking the hard questions. Unfortunately, you see this a lot. It's only conservatives that get fact checked. It's only conservatives that get asked the tough questions. And I really don't understand why that's the case.
Your opponent's been in politics for what? The last how many years?
I believe since the early '80s, he's been in office. He's basically has been anointed to every position that he's had, and now he is working overtime to get a cabinet position with the Biden administration. So it just shows you that he's just looking at the next position, and he hasn't done anything for the community. And check this out: you would think that having the control of the House, having the support of the Speaker of the House, that your bills would get pushed through and signed into law. He hasn't had any of his 16 bills even come out of committee. So that just shows you the kind of leadership that he actually has in Washington D.C. And so, go on.
No, I was gonna say, how does someone who has got nothing passed expect to get a cabinet position? I don't understand how that would work.
But that's exactly how that works. It's eh, you you do your time, you play nice, and again, he hasn't been effective, and it's unfortunate because the people here in our district and in our city, it's such a beautiful city. We are seeing a spike in crime, especially in the communities in the fourth congressional district, Little Village, Pilsen, and he hasn't done a single thing about it. He hasn't condemned the violence, hasn't come out and proposed ways to improve our communities.
What are you thinking in terms of the violence? Because really, we're looking at another potential riot situation, depending on what happens with this Breonna Taylor indictment or no indictment. What do you recommend? Let's say you were switching with him right now. You're in the representative fourth district. Like, what do you do? What do you recommend? What do you tell Lightfoot? What do you do?
Yeah, the first thing is the members of the law enforcement, they have been working overtime for the past couple of weeks. They need backup. Put egos aside and let the National Guard come in and help them in areas where they can't physically be. I mean, Mayor Lightfoot has CBD covering her house and Michigan Avenue, yet she's neglecting the communities that are being afflicted by the crime, right? The shootings, theft is going up, arson is going up, and they need backup. So that would be step one, is to make sure that there's backup. Step two, which should be part of step one, is Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox should start prosecuting these criminals. There's a sometimes a Tribune article that came out. She released 25,000 criminals last year, higher than her predecessor. And these are everything from murder to arson to sexual assault. So these are bad people that go into our communities and continue to cause harm, continue to just destroy our communities.
What do you say to someone who says, "Well, Jesus, I get what you're saying, but we need to continue to fight systemic racism in the judicial system. It has targeted brown and black people for too long, and we need to put an end to it." How do you reconcile what she's done in your position with someone who's saying enough is enough?
So if you genuinely believe that there is institutional racism, look at the people that control the institutions. It's the Democrats. So if you really want to get rid of institutional racism, then you need to start voting these people out, because they've controlled every aspect of government locally. They control every industry from tech to Hollywood to you name it. These are the people that are controlling. Again, if you believe institutional racism, then you should start voting for Republicans to get these people out.
Makes a lot of sense. Have you said that to people, and do they just stare at you like you're some sort of like talking squirrel?
Oh yeah, yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
you know who runs these, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that Democrats are doing such a good job at brushing over that little fact that it's Democrats that control Chicago. It's Democrats that control state governments. It's basically Democrats that control our congressional delegation. If these individuals, we vote them out and bring in new people, new leadership, things are going to change.
What do you think Republicans do wrong mostly? Because I don't know if is it a messaging situation? Is it that maybe there just isn't some of the courage to go in and have some of these conversations in some of these neighborhoods? Like, what do you think are some of the issues that, because just forgetting the party situation, because I will throw libertarians in there too, because they have different views. To get better solutions, you need different ideas. And if you just have this group think, it doesn't matter if it's politics or not. If you just surround yourself with yes people, you're never going to see what might actually be a solution. You're just going to hear what makes sense to you and what people tell you. So what do you think that Republicans, independents, like other people that want to get in government and want to make a difference, like what is the messaging that we got to do here to make that happen?
Yeah, I think there's so much distrust with government that a lot of people are just turned off. And these are good people that should be running, are should be running for office. But unfortunately, They're just disgusted with the system. They're disgusted with the politics, and we scare away a lot of good people. And what I've been doing over the past couple of years is and getting involved in these communities and talking to people that Republicans usually don't uh, talk to or don't go into the communities. I don't know why that is, but I know that specifically with President Trump and Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, they've been involved in these communities, in the Hispanic communities, and that's why you've seen such a good support of Hispanics sticking with President Trump, because they've been active in the communities. So I think we need to replicate that here in the city of Chicago, and across the state of Illinois, and use that blueprint. Because Ronna McDaniel did it in Michigan, I believe, or Wisconsin, wherever the state she was a chairwoman of, and that's how they increased the Republican turnout. And they did voter registrations. They were at community events. They were present and they were active. And we have to start doing that here in Chicago.
What is the reception normally when you have these events? Like, for example, if, like, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Like what is a Republican event like in Little Village?
Well, it's a great question. So I'm actually having a big event this Friday, excuse me, this Saturday in Little Village.
I didn't mean to lead into that, but I'm glad I did. Please keep going.
Yeah, so we're doing a Back to Blue rally, a community event, because we want to build a bridge between the community and the Chicago Police Department. Um, and so we're throwing this big event. I partnered with the Back to Blue organization. We've invited everyone in the community. We've been out door knocking. We've been out talking to small business owners, talking to people here in the community to let them know that we are going to throw this event. We're going to have food. We're going to have music. Just stop by, bring the kids. It's going to be a fun event. And we're going to have a speaking program. And we've invited all the local leaders to come out. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. It's about communicating with the and engaging with the community.
Was it that easy to get this event? I mean, it sounds somewhat complex, but did you just reach out to the Back to Blue organization? You said, "Hey, I'm interested in doing an event," and they're like, "Yeah, let's make it happen." Like, if someone else wanted to do that, whether it be, in their neighborhood, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, it was that easy. I attended an event downtown Chicago. I texted the organizer the next day, like, great turnout. I'd love to have an event like this in Little Village. And she was like, yes, yes, let's do it. So we set the date. And like I said, past couple of weeks, we've been out in the community, inviting people, inviting small businesses. But the other thing, we've seen how devastating the Governor Pritzker's restrictions have been to small businesses. Little Village has 26th Street, which is second to Mag Mile in revenue statewide. And so we invited businesses to come out and put a table and sell their items, and invite the community to hear from local leaders. And it was that simple. The hard part is getting people to the event. So
You talked about Governor Pritzker and some of his measures with the lockdowns. If you, or excuse me, when you become elected, what is something that you want to do in Congress to either help people out economically from what's going on now? Yeah, let's start with that, because I think we're on the same page with economics. We shouldn't just print money indefinitely. So what are some things that Congress will do under your leadership that can get things done to help people?
yeah, so just quickly, I think that being a leader, and again, something that we've not seen from our current congressman, is that you have to be a leader in your community and in your state. And we've not seen him be in the community. We've not seen him be forceful against Governor Pritzker's stay-at-home orders, even after seeing how devastating it's been to small businesses, even after seeing how devastating it's been to families. So that's something that, as an elected official, as a leader, I'm going to do that. I will stand up to my own party. I will stand up to the Democrats and say, these are the things that we have to do to help our communities. When it comes to Congress, there's a lot of things we can do in Congress. Like I said, continue to look at deregulation. That's one of the biggest things that's really helped the Trump administration with increasing jobs, especially in agriculture. But we don't see that because of the news, right? They only want to cover bite size and all the bad stuff. So deregulation is one of them. Like I've mentioned, Cheat Street. We need to get rid of the special interests and get rid of um, the lobbyists. I believe a congressman in California is his name is escaping my mind, but I would actually partner with him. He has a bill that would restrict administration officials, Congress members from Congress, from becoming lobbyists, and I would sign on to that because how you there's a lot of members that go to Congress and lose their seats, then end up working for foreign nations to get grants and contracts for those countries, and that has to stop.
Let's talk about Congress again. So your first day, this is a total hypothetical scenario. First day of Congress, there you are, you're in the Capitol building. And I learned earlier, I was talking to Esther Joy King. Have you met her before?
I've not, but I've spoken to her a couple of times.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She taught me that the Capitol is actually Capitol,
Yeah.
which is a little embarrassing that I didn't remember that given I was a history major. Anyway, so you're in the Capitol building. It's your first day, right? What is your plan to memorize 434 new names?
The way I am terrible with names. It takes me 3 or 4 times to memorize people's names, but I would find a fun way to attribute their name to something from their state, and use that as a way to memorize their names. A fun way. But yeah, that's a lot of members and a lot of names to memorize.
When you only have essentially 6 months to a year to do it, because then you're almost back on the campaign trail, which brings me to another point. You only have 2-year terms. It seems like a lot of time, it seems like you almost have to continuously campaign because there's not this continuity. Maybe trust isn't built as well, and that's why it's kind of hard to get some legislation actually done.
Mm-hmm.
What is something that you think you'll be able to provide and bring to Congress that maybe will help people actually get some deals done?
So first thing is term limits. We need term limits on the legislature, because you're right. People, as soon as they get sworn in, not inaugurated, sworn in, they have to start fundraising. They have to start thinking about their next campaign, and so they are not willing to take those tough votes. So I think term limits is a great way to make sure that these individuals are going to be taking those tough votes and making those tough decisions for people in their districts. And we also need to look at gerrymandering, making sure that it is an independent entity that is going to draw maps. Because again, right now, what we have is these elected officials, the ruling party that dictates who is in their districts by the map drawing process.
I hear gerrymandering all the time. It's done by, can you explain like the process of it? Like it's done, you said it's done by whoever's in power. I'm assuming if Democratic House, then they would be drawing their own districts. Like how's that work?
Yeah, so every 10 years, right now we're going through the census. So every 10 years, there's a census to see the population, to see where people are moving, where people live. And so after the census, those numbers are released to the states. Then the states have a certain amount of time to redraw those maps in accordance with the new numbers. So each district has to have a certain amount of population. It has to be contiguous. And so in Illinois, because it's blue, Democrats get to draw those maps. And that's why you have districts like mine that are extremely gerrymandered. They're all over the place when it comes to shapes. So in order to fix that problem, we have to take that process and allow a independent entity to draw the maps so that we're not left with crazy drawn maps. And that's here in Illinois, but also in red states. Republicans get to control the way that those maps are drawn. And again, you look at those maps and they're all over the place.
It does kind of look like a drunk person got a box of crayons and was just like, well, here's this district, and well, there's a little bit here, and we'll just kind of, yeah, okay, that looks right. Like, I've never understood how that actually works, so that makes a lot of sense. All right, let's see what else we got. Okay. I once had an idea for an app, and the way the app would work is you essentially take your phone and you get to a restaurant, and it automatically pulls up your table and then your seat. So you put in your seat, you order your food to it, and then you pay. Because I think we've all had that instance where we go out with a large group of people, and maybe that night you only eat a little bit, or like you would say you only have like, a drink, or you don't drink at all, and like some people get like loaded and they're like, oh, let's split the tab,
Yeah.
and then you end up paying an extra like $30, and you're like, why did I just spend $40 on some slice of pizza? So that's my idea that I think could work, but I've actually never really done anything for it.
Uh,
What is an idea that you have that has been rolling around in your head, whether it be an invention, politics, or something else, that you're like, I think it could work, but I haven't done it yet, and I promise I will not steal it?
wow, well, you're putting me on the spot. I don't know anything right off at the top of my head, but I will tell you that in high school, I was part of so this was 20 years ago or so, when computers were just coming out and becoming mainstream. I was part of a class, AutoCAD class. You draw buildings and stuff.
Sure.
One of the projects was to design, a gadget or something, and I had a phone that had a screen that was tactile. But this was again years before the iPhone.
Yeah.
And so every day I'm very regretful that I didn't pursue that idea, because I think I would have had invented the iPhone before its time.
So do you remember? Oh yeah, I mean, and you'd be a trillionaire. Do you remember how? Yeah, just casual. Yeah, you'd be a trillionaire.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you like had that idea for that? Like when I remember high school, I like didn't even want to do CAD. I think I passed it, but I don't even know how. How did you like come up with the idea for that like screen?
So I think it was based off of back then there was Palm Pilots, but they
Oh
were
yeah.
just like massive bricks. I was like, well, let's just streamline and make the screen like the entire face of the phone. But again, it was primitive. Don't know where it would have taken it from there, but it was pretty interesting.
Why do you think Joe Biden sometimes doesn't campaign past 9 a.m. even though the election is within 50 days?
I think his keepers, his staffers, just want to keep him away from the cameras.
Do you
I
think
mean,
that's a
even
real thing though? Like he literally has just people that are like, nah, no, Joe, like just relax. Do you think he's really got those?
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, at a presidential level, you have staffers for everything. So his people just probably just don't want him to say anything that's going to impact them, because it seems like every time that he's off the cuff, which is every time that he forgets what's on his teleprompter, it seems like his staff has to come back and clean that up for him. So that's why I think they every single day they just there's a lid and there's no press access to his campaign.
Well, Jesus, I want to let you know that during your answer to that question, 300 million Americans just died.
Oh jeez,
Yeah, Joe Biden.
is this a direct quote from Mr. Joe Biden himself?
He tweeted it out. All right, let's see what else I got here. Okay. What do you think is a bigger threat to Illinois jobs? China or the Democratic Party?
That is a tough one. Um, I'm gonna have to go with Democrats. I think Democrats are slightly beating China, um, just because of all the policies they continue to pass, all the taxes they continue to increase, the regulations they continue to instill on all the industries. And I mean, China's a close second. I mean, just because of the manufacturing jobs that they've taken away from Illinois.
You've talked in your policies about getting rid of the federal income tax, and you want to have a value added tax.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you could do something similar? Let's say forget federal. Do you think you could get rid of the Illinois income tax and replace it with a value-added tax, or could you get rid of the income tax at all? Like, how do we make Illinois a more tax advantageous state?
Yeah. So with Illinois, what we've seen is that we've had a massive income tax increase in the last 6 years or so. And we continue to hear from politicians that, oh, this income tax is either going to be temporarily or it's going to help us, with filling the holes that we have in our budget. That's not the case. Illinois doesn't have a a their budget is at it's bloated. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. And until the politicians in Springfield decide to make tough decisions in cutting the size of government, cutting um, the budget, we're not going to see a reduction in income taxes. And I mean, there's states that don't have a state income tax, and these are some of the most uh, states that are actually flourishing. And it's not the income tax that's helping them. It's the fact that people are going and moving to their states because it's business friendly. People can actually keep more money in their pocket. Government is actually run efficiently, and we're not seeing that here in Illinois. So again, it starts by electing Republicans, or not even Republicans. Start electing individuals that are against income tax increases, against increasing fees. That's another area where Chicago specifically continues to just, we've seen plate stickers go up. We've seen an assortment of different fees that continue to go up in the name of the budget. But again, we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
What's I think a cost of a license is now $60. Did you know this? My mom told me that the other day. She went to DMV. It was like $60 to get a new driver's license. I thought that was. Oh, I got the old internet connection's unstable. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
There you go. All right, last question for you. Get you out of here on this. So it's your first day of Congress, and you've memorized all 434 names. You're totally good. You're feeling like a rock star, and you're walking down the steps. You're gonna vote on something. You trip. You
Oh,
face plant,
oh boy.
and it is a viral video. First term Republican, falls on his face. BuzzFeed is all over it. Huffington Post, it's on the front page. It's like next to Trump. It's like Republicans fall flat.
Mm-hmm.
What is the first tweet that you send out after that?
Yeah, at that point, I think I would have to own it and just retweet somebody that has a clever meme and just be like, "Yep, that was me. That's me."
Well, I think that sounds like you, though. That's kind of who you are, and that's what the kind of campaign you're running, and that's what you want to bring to Illinois. Hey, these are situations we have. These are how we're going to fix them, and I actually have an actual solution. I'm not currently trying to get a cabinet position with an administration that hopefully never happens.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, any final thoughts here on your campaign? Anything we talked about? Your favorite ice cream? This is a free-flowing conversation.
Yeah, ice cream. I haven't had ice cream in a while,
I
but
believe it.
I'm a vanilla kind of guy. Stay away from the chocolate. um, what I do want to tell your listeners is, in addition to your vote, the next important thing that you can do is get involved with the local candidate, get involved with the campaign, whether it's a local state rep, even if you want to get involved with the presidential campaign. There's so many things you can do from your home. You can make calls. If you feel comfortable, you can go out and door knock and talk to your neighbors. So there's a lot of things you can do, and you don't have to invest 80% of your time. Maybe do an hour or two on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. And that's vital, because the more people get involved, the more they start to understand the process, and all these layers start to get peeled away, and they get to see how, as they say, how the sausage is really made. And I think the more that people get involved and pay attention, I think the more that we're going to be able to get people on our side and get more conservatives elected into office.
I love that. Jesus E. Solorio Jr., running for Congress in the 4th District of Illinois. Thank you for laughing and learning with me tonight. We can find you on Twitter. Do we have an Instagram, a Facebook page? Where else can we find you?
Yeah, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. It's Jesus Solorio Jr. And my website is solorioforcongress.com.
And then we'll see you on Saturday. And where will you be?
That is Petrowski Park on 31st and Central from 10 to 4. We wanted to have enough room so people can stop by, have a quick bite to eat, say hello, and we continue to invite the community and just come out and say hello.
There you go. Jesus, thank you so much again for your time. And we'll be in touch. Good luck, my man.
Thanks so much.